What is going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday morning. Welcome back to the Phaithful Phanatics show here on DSM Media's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter channels. Guys, first and foremost, if you are new to the channel, make sure to head on over to the Twitter channel at DSM_media. Hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate it. While you're over on the channel, make sure to check out the link tree in our bio. It will take you to every social media platform we are available on. If you guys want to be interactive throughout today's show, make sure to head on over to the YouTube channel specifically. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications for whenever we go live here. And it is the best spot to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up on the screen here with us. It is also the home of all of our DSM pre-game lives. I am one half of your host here, Dylan Davis. You can find me on Twitter at DylanJD98. To my right, my faithful co-host, Scotty. You can find him on Twitter as well at Scotty Drown. Jalen Hurts gets paid. Sixers take a commanding 2-0 lead in this first-round matchup over the Brooklyn Nets, and the Philadelphia Phillies split the doubleheader yesterday in Chicago, taking on the White Sox. We're going to talk all about it and much more, but my man, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. What is today? Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to you. Hump day. I'm losing track of the week. It's been a pretty busy week, but no, I'm happy to be here. Obviously, we had some Phillies baseball yesterday. Some high moments, some low moments, to say the least, which I can't wait to get into. But Jalen Hurts, man, he got that money, he got that paper, and you can't help but hear those like roaches from up in New York, New Jersey, the Meadowlands that just can't keep their mouth shut when it comes to our quarterback situation, like our team. It's so weird. It's like, it's not the Cowboys fans that are getting on my nerves this offseason. It's actually the Giants fans. It's like, you give them an inch and they take a fucking mile. Like, dude, you made the playoffs. Congrats. Like, you got blown out in the first game of the play. Like, that is the biggest takeaway of all of this, is people criticizing the Jalen Hurts contract from that perspective. It's like, your team just signed mid-ass Daniel Jones to an extension. Like, I don't need to hear from you. But aside from that, congrats to Jalen,
brother.
He deserves that money, man.
Yeah, no, they're definitely frustrating for sure. Good thing that their opinion means about this much. And it is just ironic that they are paying Daniel Jones more next season than the Eagles are at Jalen Hurts. So literally probably 30 to 45 minutes after we ended Monday's longest Phaithful Fanatic show ever, the Eagles and Jalen Hurts ink a new deal, 5 years, $255 million contract extension, over 179 guaranteed. It makes him the richest man in NFL history, setting the quarterback market. We're going to talk about the deal, Howie Roseman, Jalen Hurts, all that stuff. But my man, before we get into the numbers, before we get into Howie being a wizard, when you look at it from an Eagles fan perspective, when you look at it from the team moving forward and Jalen Hurts, just how well deserved that this deal is in itself, from what this kid has been through all the negativity, myself included, was not sold on Jalen Hurts when they selected him, was not sold on Jalen Hurts heading into this year compared to when the season ended in Tampa Bay 2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
But he has proved every single doubter wrong with an MVP-like season. The work ethic, the personality, the leadership, everything is there for the kid. He only continues to grow on the field. So it is incredibly well-deserved, and it is incredibly beneficial for both sides. Jalen gets his deal. He basically sets the quarterback market, which, Burrow or Herbert is going to, Lamar possibly is going to exceed that in the coming months, year, whatever the case is. So Howie getting ahead of the curve, but he throws $179 million in guaranteed money in Jalen's face, and that kind of is the starting number, right? That's like, okay, like, I see that big number there. You're not too worried about the yearly, right? When you see that number at first. But just the Eagles being able to lock up their franchise guy and show the belief in him. And not only that, man, the no trade clause after what occurred with Carson Wentz, and it's Howie's faith and the organization's faith in Jalen, and it's Jalen's faith in this organization and himself saying, yo, that ain't going to happen. History ain't repeating itself in that regard. Yeah. You paid me, you're keeping me, and we're going to go win an effing Super Bowl together. So I think it was great for both sides. You knew it was coming. It was only a matter of how much. And I'm glad that it's done. And I just think the irony of it all is, if you took me back a year ago today, I would have laughed in your face if
Yeah.
you read me these numbers. If you told me that Jalen Hurts was signing an extension to make him the highest paid man in NFL history, I would have laughed in your face from the way the season ended in Tampa Bay and Tom Brady. And the kid went out there and had a jump and a leap like I'm not sure I've ever seen an athlete have in the city or in sports in general. Well deserved. I could not be happier as an Eagles fan to have him locked up and know that he's really not going anywhere.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I think it's a great day for the Eagles franchise to ultimately lock up the leader of this team for the next however many years, right?
And it's 6,
Um,
right? Like he has another
years.
year on the rookie deal.
So 6-year extension there. So just to have him locked onto the team, he's a leader. And to your point, you see what he did the year before last, right? And we came out of that. We saw the offseason acquisitions. You get AJ Brown, you get some pieces for the defense, and we said it last preseason though. We said this is Jalen Hurts' year. Like if he is the guy, it's going to show this season because he has one of the best teams around him. And I know it gets talked about. It's like, oh, he has one of the better. That's what quarterbacks do, man. If they have good pieces around them, they're going to be able to do good things. That's just the simple truth of the NFL. And anybody that denies that, there's no quarterback out here playing without good wide receivers and having great seasons. Like that's just not happening. So I throw that completely out the door. You look at his ability on the field. The Eagles offense is nothing without Jalen Hurts. Like the offense is nothing. You saw it when Gardner Minshew came in, and we weren't down on Gardner Minshew. He's a quality backup quarterback in the NFL for sure. Now he's probably going to start. And what went to Indy, I think it was.
Yeah.
So he'll probably start, and he wasn't able to run the offense because this offense is built for Jalen
without its motor.
His dual threat ability, his ability to throw off the run, his ability to get out of the pocket and make plays, make throws. But it goes further than just the talent level. It's his personality, it's the characteristics, the traits, the leadership qualities that he shows. That I mean, the mottos, right? Just the quotes that he gives out alone. Like it's funny in the moment, and you're just like, man, this guy's such a smooth talker. Like, where does he get these quotes from? But you look at the leaders throughout history. I mean, you can go to the president, for example. Now, mind you, the last few elections, but if you go back to Obama, George Bush, the presidents that were actually qualified, they were great speakers, and I think that is a quality that goes into leadership, and that's something that he excels at heavily. I'm happy to have him locked up. And the one of the last things I'll say before I throw it back to you here is something that's underlying and kind of under the surface with Jalen Hurts is the attractability of him and making Eagles an attractive franchise. We've seen Buda Baker, and part of it's Nick Sirianni too. We saw that yesterday with that video that's circling.
It's also Howie.
It's Howie, right? It's
Jeffrey.
It starts there,
and
then it goes all the way down through their quarterback that leads their team. You have people that want to come and play for the Birds, to play with Jalen Hurts, to play with Sirianni, to be with Howie Roseman, who takes care of guys. And I think that's another big piece of this. We don't have A.J. Brown without Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't even have Smitty without Jalen Hurts.
Absolutely, for sure. You
know what I mean? Like, we just don't even know that far. So it actually just gave me chills saying that. It sent
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Everything has been built around this kid. The no trade clause, I'm assuming the player can waive the no trade clause. I've seen it a million times, right? Yeah. I believe Russ had a waive his no trade clause. There's been a bunch of quarterbacks. So basically,
we just wouldn't be able to trade him without
his permission. Yeah. And 100%, man, Howie's still in the kitchen reconstructing Jordan Mailata's contract to save a couple mil on the books the next 2 seasons. But to your point, now all the intangibles we already knew about, right? And he just continues to grow those. As he, I mean, dude, he's younger than me. He's younger than you. Like, that's the crazy part of it all. He's more mature than most 30-year-olds that I would know, right?
I agree.
It's the on-the-field leap that he took. And while we all hoped and expected for, an incline growth in this past season. Nobody, I don't care if you're the biggest Jalen Hurts supporter in the world, if you blindly believed in him since his time at Alabama and Oklahoma, and those kind of fans, right? That I watched him all the way back in Alabama, and the way he got benched and blah, blah, blah. You didn't know that was coming. I'm saying, like, you could tell me, I won't believe you. If you tell me to my face that you knew that was coming, I'll call you a liar. Like, you didn't see that coming, right?
You might have known that he was going to be better because he gets better every year. He works really hard at his game and his craft, but you didn't know that he was going to jump from, bottom half quarterback, if you want to call it. I don't know where he was.
To top three.
To top three quarterback.
Best in the NFC now.
Super Bowl.
That's right? That like, come on. But anyway, yeah, we'll circle back to this for sure. But you mentioned that you got Buddha, an old conversation around Super Bowl time with Kay Adams is starting to come back out. People are seeing the fit there between the Eagles and Buddha Baker. He's tweeting about the Eagles organization, liking tweets about the Jalen Hurts contract. Devin White, who wants out of Tampa Bay, is commenting on the Eagles posts and the Eagles tweets about the extension. Guys want to play here. And here's the beautiful thing. You mentioned the Smitty pick. You mentioned the AJ pick. Hell, there's probably defensive guys that, like Buddha Baker, like Devin White, that want to come here because of what this man brings to the table. Here's the interesting piece. Absolutely. Right? Here's the interesting piece of it all, man. We're talking about the richest contract in NFL history. And somehow, some way, Jalen Hurts and Howie Roseman came to an agreement that made him the richest man in NFL history, but allows this team to continue to add key pieces and those types of players around him. Here is the salary cap hits for the next 4 seasons after the extension. This is from Adam Schefter 2 nights ago after the deal was inked. In 2023, he holds just over a $6 million cap hit. In 2024, it's $13.5 million. In 2025, it's just under $22 million. In 2026, it is just under $32 million for his cap hit. Daniel Jones is being paid how much this season? For those Giants fans that you brought up, Daniel Jones is being paid over 40.
Oh my God, it's hilarious.
So somehow, some way, Howie the magician has locked up your franchise quarterback, has thrown the big number out there. Like I said, more than Patrick Mahomes, more than anybody. And somehow you get into the fine details, the fine print. And the Eagles are still in fantastic, not okay position. We can still add this. No, they're in fantastic position this year and for the next 5 years, 4 years, Scotty.
It's not a good position, literally.
And by the time in 5 or 6 years, when that cap number is like 49, whatever the case is, whatever that number is, it's in the high 40s in like 4 or 5 years. Think about what the salary number is going to be at that point in the NFL.
Yeah.
Because it grows every season. So at that point in time, that mid to high 40 number that he's being owed that year will probably be just like in the middle of the pack quarterback wise at that point in time.
Yeah, exactly.
It's unbelievable, dude.
It's insane, man. I'm just sitting here thinking, looking at Jalen Hurts, I'm thinking about situations around the NFL, and it's hard to find a better situation. Like, mind you, let's think around the league, like the youngest cores, like star players that they have in their core, right? You have Cincinnati with Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, right? Joe Burrow's about to get his new contract. You obviously have Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes is the thing. Travis Kelce. Who else? You have Miami with Tua and Tyreek. I'm looking around at all these situations, and I'm thinking, who has a better situation than the Eagles? The only one that I think you could argue, the Bills have a decent situation with Josh Allen. The only better situation that I think you can argue is literally the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm looking over a 5-year window here of just being able to contend for a Super Bowl. If you had to pick out of the pack who could get a Super Bowl for sure in the next 5 years, I think the Eagles would be the number 2 or number 3 team in that pack. And the only reason you're putting the Chiefs over is because Patrick Mahomes, literally, right? Patrick Mahomes is just that good. But whenever you can put yourself in a situation to have an opportunity in a window like that, you can't ask for a better situation. And I think that's to your point of what you were just explaining, the 2 first-round picks, the $20 million of cap space this season that we still have left after you restructure
the 800 draft picks next season.
Exactly. The monton of draft picks next season and over the next few years, we're set up for success. And I don't think it's going to stop, just at A.J. Brown. I think more players are going to want to come and ultimately play with Jalen, which, makes the Budda Baker thing. I know it's getting talked about a lot. We always say, go get this guy, go get that guy. This is a real thing. I think this is a real opportunity for the Eagles to go out and get a star safety, the next guy, right? We talked about CGJ being that Malcolm Jenkins. Budda Baker is literally the epitome of Malcolm Jenkins. He literally plays similar.
Dude, if they, I think D-Rab commented earlier, if they replace CJ Gardner-Johnson with Budda Baker and lock him up, like you hit so many nails right on the head, man. Like, the Eagles are coming off of the best record in the NFC, a Super Bowl performance, where they barely lost to one of the greatest of all time, and it should have came down to the wire, right? You lock up your franchise quarterback. You're still top half of the league in cap space, if not higher, right? You mentioned over the $20 million they have allowed this year and going forward with Howie being a magician. You have the draft compensation, 2 first-round picks next year, a bunch the year after that, or this year, a bunch at the year after that. There isn't, like, the Eagles are a Super Bowl team with a Super Bowl-ready roster that, yes, lost some pieces in the offseason, but retained big guys and brought in a couple nice role and depth pieces this offseason already. And there's not an area they lack in. You can't look at this team and say, well, they have no first-round picks for the next 2 years. You can't look at this team and say, well, they're in cap hell for the next 3 years. There's nothing. There's nothing. There's no gray area with this team. So I think you're 100% correct. And when you look at the fact that Aaron Rodgers, who is, on somewhat of a decline, still can play at an MVP level, I believe. When you look at the fact that he's on his way out of the NFC, like, there's no way he plays for the Packers, right? Until that trade goes down. Yeah. Jalen Hurts is now the best quarterback in the NFC.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second.
Making less money.
Think about what his competition is.
Money than Kyler Murray. This is what we're looking at right now, man. It is crazy to think about.
I saw a list.
That's the crazy part.
Yeah. I saw a list after Jalen signed the deal of, like, the key core pieces the Eagles have locked up through the 2024 season or 2025 season. And it's just, it's ridiculous. Jalen, AJ, Devontae, Dallas, Slay, Bradbury, some defensive linemen, offensive linemen. Like, it is ridiculous who the core that they have locked up for the next 2 to 3 seasons.
If I had to guess just off the top of my head, and I'm just going off timelines when guys were drafted, I would imagine Devontae Smith has to be like the next guy.
Next in line.
Not even this year, maybe next season. Right. That's due for an extension.
Well, if he is, then that means, when he's kind of due, Dickerson will be due as well, because Dickerson was a second-round pick that year. You're going to have to look to bring him back most likely. But yeah, man, no, it's, anybody out there, I guess the last piece of this, because as you alluded to them being Giants fans in the beginning, and whatever, if there's Eagles fans out there, I have not seen them, I don't think. If there's media members, whoever you are, that think this was an overpay, that think this was a stupid deal, man, I say this to you all the time, Scotty. I don't know if me and that person could have a serious conversation together. Like, because you know what they do? You know who those people are? They're box score watchers.
Yeah.
They don't watch the game. They don't pay attention to detail. They check the numbers after the game. This is the same thing. They look at the number. Look at the number, right? The highest paid player. And you don't break anything down. Look at those next 4 years cap hits that I laid out to you, and look me in my face and tell me that it's somehow a bad deal, because you just look at the 255.
Even if it was the surface number, right? And that's all that matters.
Right. It's still deserved at that point. The only thing that these numbers do is make it incredible for the team. Yeah. So
there's just no making sense of that, man. There's no plausible reason to look down on that contract. We know what Howie can do. He did it right there. And just the final thing, I know we got to move on to Sixers and Phillies, but looking at how this was handled, right? Like, you look at the CGJ situation, how that was handled, and mostly that's CGJ's fault, right? Like how everything
Right.
is public, how everything got misconstrued, even the Darius Slay situation, because he can't stay off social media. You look at this situation with, and I'm not throwing shade at Darius Slay or any of those other guys,
Right. But how messy it can get, right?
Jalen Hurts is on a different level of maturity, and we did not hear a peep about this deal getting worked out and done. We knew it was coming. We knew it was in the air. We knew they may be talking. A lot of people thought it wouldn't happen until after the draft, but nonetheless, got this deal done. There was no whispers, no rumors, no no misunderstandings like the Lamar Jackson situation. My God, he didn't get lowballed.
A lot of trust, a lot of faith.
The situation was handled perfectly, and I think that speaks to the way.
Shout out to his agent too for shooting your shot, fellas, ladies. Shoot your shot, man.
Yeah,
whatever you're doing. Whether it's work, whether it's relationship, shoot your shot, because she just threw a Hail Mary in Jalen's DMs coming out of college, and she just inked the richest contract in NFL history.
And it shows Jalen Hurts. It just shows the type of guy he is, right?
100%.
Characteristics, man. It's what we've harped about this whole show so far. He's just such a good dude, and I think he can find potential in people, right? And he found potential in her, and she got him the most lucrative deal in NFL history. So, man,
you mentioned draft night, man, and it makes me think, especially with the way that he got this done and planned out the next 4 years, and the way that he's restructuring my Lotta for the next 2 or so years. It almost makes you feel like there is a draft night move coming.
Yeah.
Similar to last year, a draft night trade with an immediate extension. Like, why is the next 4 years of Jalen's deal so team friendly? What kind of extension would you give a Pro Bowl safety? 3 or 4 years, most likely, right? For Budda Baker, something like that. So
27, that would put him at age 30, right? That would make sense. And then the number, right? We have a little over $20 million in cap space. You need a little bit of that money for the rookies, but 14, 15 can go to Budda Baker. So it would just be hilarious, though, if he comes and gets a multi-year deal. We throw the bag at Budda Baker, and CGJ was out here begging for money. You know what I mean? It would just be so ironic. And mind you, I'm still the CGJ situation was negatively handled, and came out of it with a negative perspective of it. But I still like him as a player, so I'm not.
I will say this to you.
I just think it's ironic for him. Oh,
for sure. And I will throw this to you, man, regarding Budda Baker before we move on.
Yeah.
Is he as an explosive as a playmaker as CJ Gardner-Johnson? No, he's not going to lead the NFC in interceptions, most likely, whatever. The Eagles still have 2 first-round draft picks and multiple draft picks this year to add to a Super Bowl-ready team. They already are a Super Bowl-ready team. Yeah. You make that move for Budda Baker, and you might be the Super Bowl favorites.
Yeah. And then you draft John Robinson.
No, I mean that, dude. Like, listen, we looked at that secondary last year, and whether you call it an upgrade, to me, it almost makes it more of a solidified secondary, more of a stronger secondary with Budda Baker back there. CGJ brought explosiveness and playmaking back there. Budda brings a different type of player. Leadership, you saw, remember that, that emotional locker room speech when he's tired of losing in Arizona. He brings a winning mentality to this team, right? He gets along with, he likes the head coach already, right? He likes to, you trade and extend Budda Baker. You might be the Super Bowl favorites.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds crazy because it's a safety and, maybe the league doesn't value. No, you put that safety in this defense, Super Bowl contender. Super Bowl favorite, I should say.
Yeah, I think so, man. I think so. It's crazy. It's crazy. And the draft is like something I can't even wrap my head around because there's just so many different avenues the Eagles can go.
Well, there's also so many things going on, right? Like, that's the issue when we're talking off-season and everything like that. Like, you have a Phillies slow start, which we're going to get to. When you have high, like, playoff expectations for them, championship expectations for them, you're the Sixers in the middle of their championship run, right? So like it's hard to be like, oh, I wonder what the Eagles are going to do in a week. You know what I mean? Like, so we'll be back with more Eagles talk next week, getting ready for the draft and everything like that. But let's move on to our other championship contender. The 76ers take a commanding 2-0 series lead over the Brooklyn Nets. Probably, hopefully, knock on wood, played their worst half of basketball this postseason run. James Harden, the turnovers. Joel Embiid, the turnovers. The poor shooting, the poor three-point shooting, the poor transition defense. The Sixers were a mess in the first half, and they trailed by 5 at halftime to the Brooklyn Nets. And then they came out a different team in the second half, and not even so much a different team offensively, because they still only put up 24 points in the third quarter.
Yeah.
They came out a much different team defensively. Now, whether that's a poor shooting night from the Nets at the office, I do not know. But this Sixers, what did we hold them to in the second half? 30 what total? 30, 34 total, 38 total points in the entire second half. I believe we held them to 14 in the third quarter. 35.
Yeah.
That is a ridiculous defensive effort from the Sixers team. And sure, it's a combination of the Nets just missing some open shots and, you know, getting a little off balance, but this is the biggest takeaway. You know, we talked to Austin Krell last night, and guys, that interview will be posted on the DSM pages at 9 a.m. following this Phaithful Phanatics show. But we talked to him, and he basically mentioned how the Nets' effective field goal percentage was almost historic in game one, and you still lost by 20. So you could argue the Nets threw their best punch in round one.
Yeah.
But I would tell you that the Sixers hit the canvas in the first half of game two. The Sixers knocked themselves out in game two. And it still wasn't enough. It still wasn't not only not enough, the Sixers somehow covered a double-digit spread. You still found a way to lose by 12 if you're Brooklyn. Yeah. Cam Johnson had 20 points in the first half. Mikal Bridges in game one had 23 points in the first half. And it still wasn't enough. You know, before the series, I said 4, and I wanted to see the Sixers come out and take care of business. And is the first half how I envisioned them taking care of business? No, if that was them taking care of business, we have a problem. But the way they bounced back, the way they took the rest of the game seriously, and the way they took game one seriously, again, alludes to a different team this season. The Nets have no shot. This series is over in 4. Game 3, I'm sure they're going to come out from their home court and throw their next hardest punch. I think the Sixers will weather that storm, and I think it's over in 4. I think what you saw the other night from Tyrese Maxey, and I'm sure we're going to talk players, Tobias Harris, some consistency, Scotty. The Sixers will sweep the Brooklyn Nets, and game 2 was probably the Nets' best shot, even though we thought game 1 would be.
Yeah, I think it was the Nets' best shot at stealing one away from the Sixers, just because they caught the Sixers. In reality, they caught the Sixers slipping, right? That's what happened in game 2, and they weren't slipping enough to lose the game ultimately. I think what is impressive, and it's something we've seen throughout the season, they're able to just flip a switch defensively at halftime. You know, Doc, I don't know if it's just Doc. I'm sure, you know, Burke and Cassell, they all help him make these game plans. But those adjustments at halftime, you talked about it directly there. You had Mikal Bridges in the first game, 23 points in the first half. He ends that game with what, maybe 30 points?
Yeah, he scored 7 in the second half.
Only takes like 3 or 4 shots in the second half. They limit him, right? They focus on him. Same thing with Cam Johnson. He has, 20, 23 points at halftime. He hits 4 or 5 threes by halftime. Comes out in the second half. He finishes the game with 28 points. So these guys are getting erased at halftime. Like, that's literally what's happening right now. And they're the only ones, to be fair to them, they're the only ones that are showing up for Brooklyn. Cam Johnson has looked great. He's played very well. Obviously, he dunked on Embiid. And I knew in that moment, because he said something to him, I was just like, shouldn't have done that. You can be like, it's a great play. It was flush. But you don't need to say it. You don't need to step out of your lane, man. You already dunked on him. That was enough. You didn't need to say something on top of it.
Joel said he didn't recall getting dunked on.
Yeah.
Joel, what we'll get to, we're going to get to that. Joel put on a WWE-esque performance on the microphone after game 2. He didn't give a good goddamn after game 2.
It's funny because what that shows me is that Joel does not give a flying fuck about this Brooklyn Nets team. Like, you saw it at the end of the game. It's like he just turned. It's like he like hit a switch himself, and he's hitting a fadeaway mid-range over 3 guys in the fourth quarter. It's like he hasn't shot all game. That's the other thing as well that I wanted to point out before I throw it back to you. Embiid in the way he's playing right now.
I love it. I was going to bring that up.
It's completely different from the regular season. You see that motor has been turned up. He's going to the rack every single time. You have little body Nick Claxton on you, little body Royce O'Neal. You take him to the paint, and he is working them in the paint, man. It's beautiful.
Here's what's so funny to me. So, I loved your point about flipping a switch because they continue to show you they can beat you in so many different ways. They can beat you from the 3-point line. They can beat you on the block. They can beat you in transition. They can lock in defensively. They can do so many different things. Their stars can step up. Their role players can go off, right? They can beat you in a lot of ways. The Joel Embiid point, okay, you mentioned Nick Claxton, Royce O'Neal one-on-one, which it's like you watch those possessions down the stretch and like you kind of understand why Brooklyn's throwing 3 bodies at them at a time. They don't stand a chance in hell if they put them one-on-one and ISO every time. But the interesting thing about Joel, led the league in scoring, MVP season. He comes out playing a lesser talented team. You would look to attack. You would look to exploit those mismatches. And he has scored 26 and 20 points. He only took 4 or 5 shots at halftime in game 2. Joel is not forcing anything. Now, he was a little more sloppy in game 2, 8 turnovers, right? But the whole team, the whole vibe was off in the first half. Harden, everybody turned the ball over in game 2. He's not forcing things offensively. And you mentioned flipping a switch. Scotty, to see him be a conductor all game and be a maestro all game.
Yeah.
And feed others.
Having fun with it.
But then when there's 4 minutes left, 5 minutes left, and this is a 6-point game, I'm going to pivot and I'm going to blow by Royce O'Neal and I'm going to throw it down. And the next possession, I'm going to get at the elbow. I'm going to put my back into you. And there ain't a goddamn thing you can do about it. And I'm going to knock down this turnaround jump shot. Like the way he went from just being an other the other day, being a decoy the other night, to being so clutch and putting the nail in their coffin was incredible to watch. Because normally with Joel Embiid in previous years, you would think, you want to get Joel going early. You want to get him the ball early. You want to put him on the block. You want to get him in a rhythm. Scotty, I'm not sure with the evolution of his game that we've talked about for the last week or so that matters anymore. I'm not sure that you need him to take 12 shots in the first half to get him ready for the fourth quarter. Because to see him barely be, a weapon in the scoring department, in the shooting department in half one, come out and just say, there's not a thing you can do against me in the fourth quarter, was beautiful to watch. Another, just everybody, man. Like Tyrese Maxey, we're going to talk about him in a minute. Tobias Harris was great, right? Like James Harden was horrific in game 2. Horrific. The turnovers, the energy, not getting foul calls, the shooting numbers. He was really bad. James Harden came out in the fourth quarter or the second half and splashed 2 big threes. Now, I know that doesn't seem like a lot. He had 8 points. But in those moments, like I remember, I think the Sixers were up 2 or up 3, and they get an extra possession, kick out the Harden, splashes a deep 3. Like, to have a short memory and to be able to deliver for your team down the stretch of a playoff game is big time, dude.
I was just reading Casey's comment there. But, looking at oh my goodness, I'm losing train of thought just looking at the comment. Nonetheless, your points about James Harden. How do we get him to not have games like that though? Like I do agree with you. He had good moments in the second half, and he did hit a few big shots.
Yeah.
Is it just him? Like, does he have to get past the rest? Like, I think that's part of the thing with driving in the lane and missing the layups. Forget about the calls. I think that's the biggest thing. Like he does
right or wrong.
he does that one move where he drives in the lane, uses his shoulder to kind of create space, and then he'll either like throw it up for a floater or he'll try to drive all the way to the rack.
That's, by the way, the worst move.
It's the worst move. It's the worst move, bro. It's not quick anymore either. I think that's the problem with it.
You're talking about when he puts his elbows into the defender's chest and throws one like off the glass and it'll hit the rim, or because all he's doing in that moment is trying to draw the contact. There's no thought process to finishing at the rim through the contact when he does that. Like, dude, he throws it almost 100 miles an hour off the glass.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's not finishing.
Exactly.
So when he's not getting those calls, it's almost a turnover at that point, right?
Exactly.
Whether he should get the call or not, he's not. My answer to you would be, what can we do? What can the team do, Doc? I don't know. And it sounds really bad being, a 30-some-year-old vet in this league, a top 75 player of all time. It's this.
Yeah.
If he's missing shots, if he's not getting calls in the first 5 minutes of a game, he somewhat checks out, and it feels like it translates to other parts of his game, to his point guard duties, to his distributing duties.
Yeah.
Did James Harden in game 2 look like the assist leader to you? Look like the conductor of this offense that we saw all season long? No, because he seemed frustrated. He seemed out of it. No, the first half more so. I thought his body language was better in the second half. So was the whole team's. But I would say, yeah, man, I think when he doesn't get those calls, when he misses his first 2 or so threes, I think something up top frustrates him, and he takes plays off, and he's not so careful with the basketball.
I think, you look at that situation, I think part of it, we have to attribute it to the way he's being refereed. I do think that's
which is ridiculous.
Don't want to
James Harden
over that. He has shot no free throws throughout
in 2 games, Scotty. Now, I have never seen a superstar get calls. And like when maybe he's not playing at a superstar level anymore, but he's still the name James Harden. He's a superstar. He's a top 75 player of all time. James Harden in Houston, James Harden in Oklahoma City got every whistle in the world. I have never seen, as a dude's career grows, the whistle detracts.
Yeah.
Like Tyrese Maxey at this young point of his career isn't getting calls. Some young guys don't get calls. You grow into those whistles. Harden's losing the whistle.
Yeah, literally.
And it's a big part of his offensive repertoire.
Literally. Yeah. No, I do feel that. And that's why I wanted to highlight it, just to make sure we don't forget about that when we're talking about James Harden.
Joel didn't let you forget about it either.
No, not at all. Looking at Casey's comment here, and it kind of takes me to Tyrese Maxey, and it's kind of what I was talking about a little bit in that Austin Crow interview, which you guys will see after this. Whenever James Harden is playing like that, put the ball in Tyrese Maxey's hands. And I think that part of that is in Tyrese Maxey as well. He needs to understand
be assertive.
Harden is not playing that well right now. They have Harden's number. It's your time. You need to bring the ball. Like, there's no reason when James Harden is being full court press that he should have to bring the ball up that slow. Like,
can I ask you something? Do you think you saw Joel kind of do that last game?
What?
Because how many times do you think you kind of saw Joel do that last game? Because how many times did you see Joel grab a defensive rebound and bring the ball up himself? Now, I know Harden wasn't on the floor in that first quarter, but they were on the floor together when Joel brought the ball across half sometimes. And now, granted, sometimes it works and he draws so much attention as a 7-foot point center.
Yeah.
Other times he doesn't know when to stop his dribble, and he turned the ball over quite a few times doing so. But like you mentioned, like kind of moving away from Harden and putting him on off-ball screens and stuff like that. I think Joel kind of said, yo, dude, like.
Yeah, you got to chill. You know what I mean? It was one of those. Like, I do think, because there's just some nights where it's like, Harden, he's just not looking like that 22 and 11 guy, right? And I think on those nights, Tyrese Maxey is being biased. Y'all got to recognize, because they are younger, right? Yeah. They're more in their peak, in their prime of their careers. They need to step up in those situations. At the end of the day, Harden is meant to be a facilitator. The scoring is extra. So when that scoring's not there, we should be able to supplement that with our other pieces. But it's interesting, though. I did see that, and I still see Maxey even in this game where he hits, 6 or 7
6.
threes, he has 33 points. He's still looking over at Harden like, do you want the ball? Stop. You got to understand in each and every moment.
I will say,
then you give him the ball.
yeah.
If he's open, you take the ball because you're playing better right now.
I will say I do agree with you in the point that when Harden's selling like that and Maxi's as aggressive as he is as a scorer, I do like the idea of the ball in his hands more. But to me, that purpose needs to be to get him the ball already and get downhill and try to score, because Tyrese Maxey is not a point guard. And watching Tyrese Maxey try to get the ball to Joel Embiid through traffic is one of the ugliest things you will see. It stalled about 4 possessions the other night, and I believe 2 or 3 of them turned into a turnover. So that's painful, man. I want to spend like the last 10 minutes or so on the Phillies. So last thing here, KC, I think they're rightfully being crowned the new favorite with the Giannis injury. He's doubtful. They were 2 wins away from winning it last year. They're really good. I mean, if we're taking care of business against Brooklyn, they're even more so taking care of business against the Hawks, right? The only do I care? You can't care that you would probably say they're the better team, right? You would say they're the better team. It'll just make round 2 a little bit sweeter if things can go in a positive direction.
Look, it goes like this. The Boston Celtics have a better complete team. Their complete roster is better. But is their starting 5 better than the Sixers starting? That's what the series is going to ultimately come down to. We talked to Krell. You guys will see it on the next interview after this show. He kind of dives into that. The starting 5 is going to be playing 40-plus minutes a game when we get to Boston, and it's going to be a completely different series. It's not going to matter, the 10th guy coming off Boston's bench, because we're going to have our 5th guy in the game, right? So it's just one of those situations. That's the way I would look at it. But I think Boston, rightfully so, with Giannis in a gray area right now, being the favorite. It makes sense ultimately. And Tobias Harris, I just wanted to shout him out.
I was going to say that. Shout out Tobias.
He's playing with like an aggression and a mental mindset.
Keep it going, man. Keep it going.
Yeah.
It has been beautiful to watch what he's done, not only scoring the ball, but being aggressive on the glass, getting out in transition, playing tough defense. Tobias Harris has been phenomenal the first 2 games of the series. Do I expect him to average 20-plus points? No. But 15, 16 now seems very possible. 14, 15, 16, and I would love it, man. Let's finish off the show with the Philadelphia Phillies. They split in Chicago with their doubleheader yesterday against the White Sox. I don't know. It's not a surprise to me, to anyone. The Phillies historically in doubleheaders, they have not swept a doubleheader they swept one doubleheader and I don't know how long. They have either been swept. They have been swept in 14 doubleheaders and split 14, or vice versa, in like the last 30. Okay. So they don't sweep doubleheaders. It's just when you watch those 2 ball games yesterday, yes, I know the lineup was tweaked at the back end. You have Bailey Falter starting, not Zach Wheeler, but somehow you got a better start out of Bailey Falter outside of a first inning 3-run home run than you did out of Zach Wheeler.
Yeah.
And you got 2 completely different baseball teams.
Yeah.
You had a Phillies team in game 1 with Zach Wheeler on the mound. He surrendered 4 runs in 1 inning, right? You had a Phillies team come out with 14 hits, a couple walks, score 7. In the last 2 games between that game and their shelling against Luis Cessa and the Reds on Sunday, the Phillies had combined for the most hits in, or since forever how long through a 2-game stretch. They follow that up with almost being no hit. Like literally 1 hit from Brandon Marsh in the 8th inning, a double down the line was it. And they had a hit batter and about a walk or 2, 3 walks like that. That's what they produced in a 3-0 shutout loss in game 2. I completely agree with this. Scotty. I texted you about this yesterday through game 1. Now, the vibes were a little more positive during game 1 with the offense, but when you think about, Bryce coming back, and even though you don't view Derek Hall as this big addition, Derek Hall playing over Cody Clemens or someone like that is going to be big in this lineup. Ranger, right? Painter, if he can ever get healthy, having those guys back are going to be huge. I'm just frustrated by how drastically different they looked. You won 2 in a row. You got the first one in Chicago. Come out with some life. with some energy. Like, dude, Lucas Giolito is still a good starter. He used to be a little bit better. He came in this game 0-1 with like a 5 or 6 ERA.
Yeah.
It's not like he's been lights out through 3 starts this season, and you made him look like Cy Young. Like, I don't know, man. Like, that's the only thing that hurt was like the lack of energy, and like it's because it's almost like, what is this team? Yes, I know they're injured, but what else is this team?
I don't know. And correct me if I'm so, like, do you think the injuries have an effect, especially on a day where you have a doubleheader? Maybe you could switch a couple of those guys off in the lineup and maybe have a better.
I mean, when you look at the back three of game 2, right? You had Cody Clemens, Jake Cave, and Christian Pache in your, or not even Jake Cave, was it? It might have been Jake Cave, but nonetheless, you had Cody Clemens and Christian Pache in the 7 and 9 hole. Yeah, that's not a lineup out there that you're really expecting to do much damage with, but you would still hope that your top 5 would show up. Trey Turner in both games was not good. Trey Turner's average dropped from a 338 to a 303 or 308 yesterday.
What's his what would you grade him so far this season?
I got to be honest here, man. Now, Trey is not a problem. He is not the problem. Trey is going to be perfectly fine. Do not take this the wrong way.
Yeah.
He has been a C so far.
Okay. That's a
C.
Pretty much
the average has been there all year. He's still hitting over 300. The defense has been solid. Like, Trey is not the issue.
Yeah.
No home runs.
Yeah.
Through 18 games. The extra base hits feel like they haven't been the thing for him since a double at Citizens Bank Park, maybe against the Reds in that first home series.
Yeah.
He's striking out a decent amount. He's doesn't have a high exit V. Like, I don't know. Like, I would agree. A CC plus. And I'm like, I swear people take this the wrong way. Like, I'm hating on Trey Turner or,
it's not like that.
Trey Turner is going to be at times the best player on this Phillies team, even with the healthy Bryce Harper. And he's always going to be a top 2 player on this team. Yeah. He's going to hit for around 300 this year. I'm sure the power numbers will come, but I will tell you this. I do believe that his power struggles and Castellanos' power struggles and JT's power struggles are a very big reason why the Phillies offense or a team is struggling. I know it sounds crazy to say offense when they've had a couple, double-digit games, and it seems like they've had multiple double-digit hits, but they've struggled with runners in scoring position. They're struggling to hit for power.
Yeah.
So those timely hits, those big hits are lacking from the Phillies right now.
Do you think there's any like hangover from the what is it, the World Baseball Classic? Like, was there anything, them playing?
There could be.
I know JT and Trey Turner specifically played.
And Schwarber were there, but he didn't play as much. No, I think there definitely could be. I mean, I guess you could argue
excuses, right? Like, at the end of the day, like,
just I don't know. It was just crazy to watch Trey's power numbers in that WBC, and then
watch him grand
and not pull anything out yet. He's come close a couple times. He hit one to the warning to right center, basically to the top of the wall for a double against the Marlins. That was probably his last double, excuse me. But yeah, man. It's just there's a bunch of things, and it's all just inconsistency, right? Because those things I just alluded to weren't a problem in game 1. The Phillies hit with runners in scoring position. They hit with 2 outs, right? The Phillies, passed the baton to one another in game 1. But then those things became an issue again in game 2. Yeah. Now, they might not be an issue today, but will they be an issue tomorrow? And that's what this team needs to start to string together and figure out. They need to start to string together a couple wins in a row, and they need to start to string together some consistency.
Yeah, it's just annoying yesterday. I'm sitting here looking at Bailey Falter's number. I know he his numbers. I know he gave up the 3-run homer to start the game, but like
the first Phillies pitcher to get through 7 this year.
The first Phillies pitcher to get through 7 innings, only gives up 3 hits, 3 runs. Like,
after I tweeted that I couldn't wait to not watch Bailey Falter start anymore.
67 of 98 pitches were strikes. Like, he was pounding strike. Like, he had a good outing, and they go and waste it.
But even him, I want to bring up I want to bring up this final point just for you here.
Yeah.
The problem with that, he had a great outing. He went through 7. You mentioned the hits, low, the 3 runs. The bats got 1 hit at the end of the day. So there's nothing that he could have did differently. There is something to be said about when and how you give up hits and runs.
Yeah.
Starting game 2 of a doubleheader with a 3-run deficit headed into the top of the second, you just felt like it was a loss then and there. Forget the no-hitter through 7. Like, even if the Phillies had 8 hits, 9 hits, you still felt like that was a loss because you dug that hole you've so consistently been in already. So Falter was fantastic. The way he battled and didn't give up anything else after that was huge. He gave the Phillies more than a fighting chance to come back. But it definitely sucked the energy out of the dugout after a win because it sucked the energy out of me, Scotty. Yeah. I'm sitting there watching that moonshot of a home run. You're losing 3-0 in the first inning, and it already felt like that was basically the ball game. Phillies take on the Chicago White Sox today, afternoon game, 2:10, 2:30. Win the series, man. You lose. Here's the thing: as good splitting yesterday, whatever. You lose today. You have now lost 3 straight series again.
Yep.
You have to win today.
Yeah.
Have to, like, it's almost like you're getting to that point. The Phillies need a win today.
Yeah.
That is going to wrap up this Wednesday edition of the Phaithful Phanatics Show. Guys, stay tuned right here on DSM Media's YouTube channel for our interview with Austin Krell talking about the Philadelphia 76ers playoff run. For myself, for Scotty, have a great rest of your night.